Why do I keep doing this? Because I have unfinished business. I set out on this journey to be a world champion, and I'm not there yet. I've got a few more chances left. I found a few ways that don't work to do it, but I think I've got it in me, and that's what fuels every day. That's what gets me up in the morning. I left a comfortable job, tenure, essentially job security for life to be able to look back when I'm done with this sport and know, rather than wonder what if. So I'm gonna know.
Welcome to the Greg Bennett Show, presented by Any Question. I'm your host, Greg Bennett, and I've just finished a wonderful conversation with the real up-and-coming Ironman athlete, Matt Hanson. And the reason I say up-and-coming is because I think there's still more there. Even though he's a 4-time North American Ironman champion, won recently with a 7-hour 56 in Des Moines, Iowa. So I definitely don't mean any disrespect when I say up-and-coming. I just believe that this guy is the one that we're going to be talking about in a couple of years as being one of the all-time greats. So it was wonderful to have a sit-down conversation with him, understand his journey a little bit and what it's taken for him to get to where he is right now and what it looks like going forward for him. I hope you enjoyed this one as much as I did, because I just thought it was absolutely fantastic. The other thing with Matt, he's a professor of sports science. So he comes from a background of teaching, and he's taken that and he took the big gamble to go all in to become a professional athlete. And I just love that. And he also has his coaching business and everything else. So go check it out. You can also find Matt now on Any Question. So you can go download Any Question on iOS or Android, or you can go to anyquestion.com/Matt Hanson try, all one word. So that's anyquestion.com/Matt Hanson try. Go ask him questions there. He's already got a bunch of answers. You can find other athletes and other incredible people on Any Question. There's now almost 300 experts across about 8 different channels. So go check it out. That's Any Question, one word, iOS or Android. I hope you enjoy this show as much as I did. And remember, success comes to those who endure just one moment longer. All right, today I'm joined by one of the greatest Ironman athletes in the world. He's currently ranked 8th on the PTO World rankings, and he's been steadily making his way up this list for many years. He's quietly gone about the job of winning major Ironmans, including 4 North American titles. Combine that with his multitude of half-Ironman wins, and you start to see the incredible foundation that he's building. With his background as a professor of sports science and just his natural ability to run a fast marathon in an Ironman, add his discipline and determination, and I truly have him on course to become one of the real true greats. It's an honor and privilege to have him join me. So welcome, and thanks for joining me on the Greg Bennett Show. Matt Hanson, how are you, mate?
I'm doing well. Thanks for that intro. It was quite nice, I guess.
You're welcome, buddy. It's I try to make sure I include as much as I can in sort of a fluff up for the intro, and it's not hard with all of my guests. So, mate, how does it make you feel when you hear, 4 North American Ironman titles?
Yeah, I mean, obviously that race has made my career. It's moved a couple times, been on different courses, anyways, but 3 of them in Texas on 2 different courses, and then the most recent one in Iowa. I mean, if you take those 4 races off of my resume, it's pretty ho-hum. But I've been able to at least show up for that one year in, year out.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty outstanding, mate. And to be able to do 4 from, it's not 4 from 4. Is it 4 from 4? 4 in a row?
No. I've had an epic failure, a 5th, and a 4th as well.
Awesome. Well, before we go into your races and what you've done, give us a quick update. Where are you at the moment? You're on break because you've just done an Ironman about 10 days ago.
Yeah.
Where are you at the moment?
Right now, I am in Clearwater, Florida. Not too far from you. I came out here. My wife had a conference here, and so I thought it would be a good time to to come out and just kind of kickstart the heat prep for the next block of races that I have. So I'm swimming a bit in the ocean every morning, and then literally just riding my bike during the day and in the heat. Nothing hard or structured. I just kind of find a route on Strava or Garmin Connect or whatever that seems like a good one, and that's what I do on the day. So it's been a fun week.
Mate, how hot is it at the moment down here, though? I can't imagine doing long rides in the heat here. It's like, I think I saw the other day, it said 91 or 92, but feels like 99 with the humidity.
Yeah. On Monday, I started my ride at 2:00. And I had to bite my pride because I've got a roadie here, so just 2 bottles. But I did a 2.5 hour ride, and I had to stop for a bottle refill. With the real fuel was 114, and it was my first real day in the heat and humidity, and I was suffering. So I've gotten a little earlier start since then.
How have you found it? Like Laura and I, we traveled around Florida and Australia, and then we'd go back up to Colorado, and everyone always talked about altitude, but we found the humidity, the extreme humidity, almost a tougher battle. In terms of fatigue and just and the wear and tear. How do you compare them?
Yeah, I mean, the altitude will slow things down a little bit, but it doesn't like chronically zap the energy out of you like the humidity does. And I notice that even when I do like a sauna block or a steam room block as I'm trying to prep in Colorado for a hot race, that just having that extra load on the body definitely takes a toll. And, it's something that we have to be careful about because, we always, as coaches, we measure things in terms of TSS, but, if you're looking at the power meter or pace, that really doesn't show up in extra load on the body really doesn't show up.
Do you think there is a really great training effect you get by training in humidity? Like, there's a lot of research on the training effects of training at altitude. Is there a positive effect that a coach can lean into or an athlete can lean into by sort of saying, hey, if I'm struggling here, it means I'm getting stronger for when I'm not in such a humid place?
Yeah, I think that it can be done in blocks. I mean, for me, ideally, it's not something that I'm doing year round. I think that some athletes can handle it just a little bit better than others, but it's always, I guess, at least since I kind of had a heat stroke issue a number of years back, I've been struggling with the humidity component especially. And so I like to do it in 10 to 14 day blocks as I'm prepping for hot and humid races.
Interesting.
But maybe I need to do even more than that.
Yeah, you're welcome. Come down here, mate. South Florida, it'll always give you that hot, humid. Even in the middle of winter, it's still, you get those warm days. But mate, this year, it's been pretty solid. You got to be pretty happy with it, I think. Looking at your 2021, you had a second to Bart Aernouts at the 70.3 Ironman Florida, but a fourth at Clash Daytona, I guess. So it was a reasonable year, but this year you've come out swinging with a strong second place at Challenge Puerto Veras and, second at Chattanooga, 70.3 to Jason West, where you ran a 109, I think, which was it's insane. Anybody who's done Chattanooga knows that that's not a super fast race either.
It's not. It's definitely a tough run. The bike can be fast depending on the weather, but yeah, that run is not an easy one. Yeah, last year I started off the year pretty well and had a little bit of a crash in May at St. George that ended up, I kind of tried to fight through an injury I got there and ended up having to have surgery right after the Collins Cup, which kind of derailed all my entire summer and then, all the way into fall. And so to get back and put together a modest day in Daytona was a big win for me because that was really just a few runs, into the next build after surgery and recovering from that. So it set things up to where I thought that I could have a good year, and I've executed pretty well, minus the race that really mattered this year in St. George. I'd like to have that one back. But,
can I interrupt right there? Because looking at the results, your bike, what happened?
Yeah, that's still been a huge head scratcher. If my power from St. George was within, a couple watts of my power in Des Moines, and I obviously ran well and I swam well in that race, and the bike acted, or the results or the data looks like there was something like a brake rubbing or something like that.
It has to be.
I didn't ever hear that or anything like that. But, when we kind of model things before and after the race, I'd been out there training for a number of weeks and had numerous runs on the course, and my CDA numbers were, in training kit were much higher than I had during that race. And so I'm a bit at a loss there. It's been a bit of a frustration. I didn't change anything on my bike setup that should have caused that from just, bottle placement or something like that. But, that almost sounds like an excuse.
No. It's a discussion, mate. It's not an excuse. Where I'm here to soundboard with you, because when you look at your world championship bike of riding a 4:35 and 19 minutes off the leaders, 19 minutes, which is not right for you. And then you go jump forward only a few weeks and you go to Des Moines and the Ironman North American champs. You have the fastest bike, and that's 2 minutes over Tim O'Donnell, who's, we all regard as one of the uber bikers in Ironmans, and you're 2 minutes faster than him and you ride a 4:09. I mean, it is a completely different scoreboard. And that's the thing. You've gone from being way down the list to the fastest bike in 4 weeks. And you said the numbers are still pretty much the same.
It's obviously, would have much rather had the better performance in St. George. Would have been, much better off on all counts. But that's part of racing is making sure that you're on top of everything. And that's from strategy to making sure everything's all set. And I've gone back to the drawing board a number of times, and that one I haven't found an answer for that.
Who are you riding with? What bike are you on?
Yeah, I've been on a QR for a number of years, and it clearly wasn't anything with the frame itself.
No.
It would be something on the component wise would have been rubbing, but again, I couldn't notice anything, and tore down the bike and built it back up completely, and then went to Chattanooga and rode a 2 flat. So
something was off. Something was off. It's not an excuse. It's just a fact, because when you look at all the numbers, it's just like, it just sucks that it was off on the key day. And you still ran up to 13th. Obviously, you're more than that. I know that, you know that. And so you don't walk away going, that was awesome. But I think when you put it all together and knowing that there's 2 world championships.
Yeah. That's kind of the race that's eluded me. In my previous performances in Kona have not been good. And obviously that kind of keeps me under the radar a bit. And it also definitely hurts with what I'm trying to build and what I'm trying to accomplish as well. And so that's where all the major goals lie. And, hopefully we get that unlocked this fall.
I think you're one of the athletes that I've noticed over this, the COVID years since 2019, as somebody that's just sort of progressed, just a little percentage each year. And those percentages are massive when you start becoming, you're in the top 1% of the sport, that when you can be still improving. Do you sense that as well, that you're sort of just getting a little bit better each year?
Yeah, it's been a fun process. And, moving out to Colorado, I think really helped with the last kind of jump. I moved out in the end of 2020, and just having people to swim with every day. Before I was swimming on my own in Iowa in a pool that really, it didn't even have lane lines. That was my training ground, and that was fine, and we made it work. But being able to swim and with Tim and Justin Metzler on a regular basis, and really get pushed by those guys, going out and riding with them afterwards, running with the crew beforehand. I'm up in Boulder twice a week, and just have that group to train with has helped bring things to another level, I think. And
you can see it. You can see it. You got 4th out of the water in Des Moines last weekend at the Ironman North American Championships there. 4th and only, what was it, maybe 2 minutes behind? Was it Tim O'Donnell out of the front?
A little bit more than that. I think I benefited from a long transition there. I was able to make up. I think the transition total was over a half mile, so I was able to take up a little bit.
Get those long legs of yours bounding through.
Exactly.
You're very modest. You won't give yourself much. I kind of like, I try and pump you up and go, yeah, you had a really great swim. Yeah, it was a long transition. I'm like, no.
It was definitely a good swim, especially because I was alone. To come out of the water by myself, only 2 minutes down from those guys I was very happy with that. I mean, I think Chattanooga the week before, to come out on those guys' feet was good as well. So definitely moving in the right direction there.
Yeah, but I got to say, mate, your run in Des Moines, come on, 2:49.
I know.
For you, come on.
Yeah, that was not my best run there. I did things a little bit different, and then definitely had to go into conservation mode for the last 10K. I even stopped in a porta pot for 2 minutes to pee.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Wow.
I had a 7-minute lead and I was quite uncomfortable. So I'm just like, you know what? I'm going to just stop and regroup and enjoy the porta pot time here for a little bit.
Was that hard to get going after that?
It was so much better. I could stand up straight.
Oh, really? You were really just busting and felt cramped over?
Yeah. I've been really focusing on some of the years in Kona, or a couple of years after I got heat stroke, my body kind of freaked out and my sweat rate has gone up to upwards of 8 pounds per hour. Last time I actually did Kona, when I wasn't injured going in, I lost 20 pounds during the race. And so I've been really working on that. And so that was the last 2 fulls that I've done are the first 2 times that I've ever had to pee during a full, since, basically the overheating incident that I had that kind of rewired my hypothalamus.
Oh my goodness. 20 pounds. So that's 8 kilograms. What are we talking? I'm trying to convert quickly 2.2 pounds to a kilogram. So people can do the math there, but that's insane. That's a lot, mate. Yeah.
Yeah. I flew out to the University of Connecticut, worked in the heat lab there, and, they have the Corey Stringer Institute, which is one of the best heat labs in the world. And they were pretty baffled. I was in there. I was 8 pounds an hour and 3 grams of salt. So I've been working on different ways to try to get that down, and spend a lot of time working with the guys at First Endurance. And then also Delta G now, I've been incorporating ketones into it as well, just to allow me to take in more salt and keep the osmolality a little bit down. So it's been an experiment, and I'm finally getting on top of it. I'm feeling I've been racing. Chattanooga was definitely hot. I ran well there. Kind of derailed a little bit at the end of Des Moines, but I think a lot of that was because I was so focused on the fluids that I let the calories get away from me, and my heart rate never drifted up. And so I was just watching the heart rate and so concerned about fluids. And I think that, I just got light on the calories. So that's an easy fix.
Wow. I mean, you're talking about, by the way, everybody, this is a champion's mindset. He's run a 2:49 off a 4:09 bike to finish up with a 7:56 win. These splits are insanely incredible, but I love the fact that you're just trying to dial in and find more and more.
Let's face it, a 7:56 isn't going to win Kona anymore. If that's my objective, I've got to find the answers, and I've probably got to run sub 240 off of a 4:15 bike there. Yeah,
the math is changing rapidly. They're numbers that 10 years ago none of us were talking about. Now it's like, it was always, if you do a 4:30 and then if you back it up with a sub 250, you're on the podium.
Yep.
And now it's like, you're not even top. No, those numbers don't count anymore. You got to be 15 minutes faster on the bike, and a good 15 minutes quicker on the run. It's insane.
Yeah, I really think that was a unintended benefit from the COVID shutdown, is when we went from racing all the time to being forced to essentially train for 12 months straight. You just coming out of that, either people were really hungry or we just got a lot we benefited from like solid training blocks. And I think we can learn a little bit from that, just because coming out of COVID, things got so fast.
What do you put that down to? Just the year of training, or are we talking anything in equipment or gear, or the way we train? Obviously it seems like the Norwegians seem to have found something that they're doing that, everybody else is scratching their heads and going, okay, we got to start dialing in as much as we can as well. What's happened over these last few years?
Yeah, obviously technology is getting a little bit better. And I think really part of it is just like, we need to see that what's possible. And then once we see it, then that becomes the new norm. Like it used to be 241 was the fastest you'd see. If you ran under 241, that was like the ceiling, right? Where, the shoe technology's come a long way, but I think it's just like seeing it happen, and your high 230s is kind of necessary to plan on winning a race.
And it makes sense though, right? Nearly every one of you train your long runs potentially at 6-minute miles, 3:45K pace. Not to bring it back to me, but that was the kind of long running I was doing 10, 15 years ago. It was like, that was your barometer. You do your long runs at 3:45K pace. When you slow down, it goes to 4-minute Ks, or 7-minute miles. But really that's your level. And yet we found in racing, it was very hard for everybody to stay at that pace. But now we're seeing the best hold on to that kind of pace.
Yeah. And negative split, going out at that pace.
Yeah. The shoes are extraordinary. There's probably something in that for sure. Who are you running in with shoes?
Yeah, I've been with On since 2015.
Okay.
Definitely been a fun project to be a part of, as they kind of they'll be launching their Gen 3 carbons here shortly.
Yeah, they've got their own super shoes now as well. I think Nicola Spierig ran in them to break the 8 hours the other week, didn't she?
Yes.
Yeah, I saw those. They're very cool. You've got to be in these kind of shoes. I don't see... I think you're giving up a little bit. It's the same as if you don't dial in your bike with everything you can in terms of bearings and everything else that you can do to optimize your speed.
Yeah, there's no place to be giving up time. That's for sure.
No. And how did it feel to take the win in Des Moines? Because was it Boulder 2019, your last?
I won 70.3 in Campeche in March of 2020, literally like a day before the shutdown. I wasn't sure if I would be able to get back home. Well, 2020 was my last win. And 2021 was the first year that I went my professional career without a win. So definitely meant a lot to break the tape again. And doing it in Iowa, where I spent most of my adult life. That's, I taught in Iowa until 2015, and my wife and I lived there until 2020. And my wife raced, my sister raced, so I was able to sneak in and give them their finisher medals. That meant a lot.
That's awesome.
Having some like alumni that I went to school with that lived in the Des Moines area came out to support me. So that was a lot of fun. My entire family was there. So, those little things definitely added to the day for sure.
What is it about Des Moines, Iowa and triathlon? It's actually got quite a history with the high V triathlon, which Laura and I were very fond of in our careers. And now it's coming back with Ironman. They embrace triathlon there, and it's a great place to race. I actually always loved it. I loved going to Iowa to race.
It is. They put on a great event. The roads were in really good shape overall. There was just like one little stretch that I thought was a little bit bumpy, but if you're running 112 miles in a race, you're going to have tough stretches of road at some point. But yeah, it was really well done. The race director did a fantastic job, and I was excited to hear that they have a 3-year contract now. I think it'll be a 70.3 for 2 more years, and then a full again in 2025. But yeah, it's kind of a little hidden gem. I love training in Iowa in the summers. It definitely can. You get a little bit of everything, a lot of wind usually, but we didn't have that on race day. If we would have raced the next day, it would have been absolutely miserable. I think there were about 30 mile per hour sustained winds the entire day, but we lucked out and got just heat and humidity. So yeah, it was good.
Yeah. And how was it connecting, with Tim O'Donnell, his sort of first Ironman back since having the heart attack? You guys trained together a lot, both being on the podium together. Was that special?
Yeah, for sure. Even, Andre we all swim together. Tim, Andre, and I typically share a lane. But that was, that was pretty fun. And Andre had a breakthrough race, and, just getting to, chit chat with Tim a little bit on the bike as we kind of tried to form a group of 4 to make sure it was a 4-person race. Once I finally caught up to those guys, it was a good experience all around. Again, would have liked to have the last 10K over, but you can't get too greedy, I guess.
But it is an Ironman. Well, mate, what I'd like to do now is just shift gear a little bit, and before I do, congrats on Des Moines, because I know it is special. Any win is very special. And to do it in such style, congrats, buddy. But what I love to do with all my guests is rewind the clock, as I put it. And just tell me, when did you sort of first find your passion for sport, I guess, as a whole, and then especially triathlon? What was your journey like?
Sport as a whole, it was kind of centered around my dad. I started running because my dad did 5Ks and 10Ks when I was growing up, and he would come home and go for a run after work. So I'd kind of wait for him when I was a kid, and he'd drop me off after his warm up, and then by 5th or 6th grade we would run together, and by 6th and 7th grade I would drop him off after my warm up, and that's just kind of, it was time together. But my main love as a kid, and even into college, was wrestling. I wrestled up until I dislocated my hip in college, and any running that I was doing was to make me a better wrestler at that point. And at one point I had discernible muscle mass on my body and looked a little bit more like a anaerobic athlete, but kind of had to morph that a little bit.
I could not have believed that with you, because how tall are you?
I'm 5'10".
5'10". I always think of you much taller than that.
Nope. 5'10", but yeah, I was a tall 140.
Nope, always been 5'10", Greg.
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe the way you run with that loping run style of yours.
I don't have the stride of a 5'10" guy, that's for sure.
No, that's awesome. Oh, so you came from wrestling. And
I did.
Well, running and wrestling. But then, that next step, when did you kind of find triathlon?
So when I was 16, a wrestling coach that I was at a wrestling camp, and he challenged me to make a list of 50 goals for the next 10 years. And it was just, my dad had taught me early on the importance of goals. And so, when a guy that I really respected gave me this task, I took that pretty seriously and ended up carrying that piece of paper around for 10 years. And one of those, for whatever reason, I knew nobody that had done triathlon or anything like that. I'd seen the Ironman, Kona edition on TV. That was my extent of it, of understanding of the sport. And so one of them was to just do an Ironman triathlon. And so when I was working on my master's at age 25, that was one thing that I could still go after. And so decided to buy a cheap used bike on eBay and do a Coeur d'Alene.
Wow. That's amazing. Of that 50, was the Ironman one of the bigger goals? What else did you have on?
No, that was really one of the ones, to be honest, that was at the end as I was trying to get to 50. I mean, getting the first 35 was pretty easy, but you're a 16-year-old kid, you have no idea what direction your life is going to go, and so I think it was literally number 47 or 48 on the list, and I think it was the next one after that was own a monkey.
Own a monkey?
No.
Did you own a monkey?
I didn't. No, evidently that's...
Oh, what a failure. You failed. That's awesome. What a classic.
So many of them obviously surrounded or evolved around wrestling or grades in high school and college. And so, some of them, the time ran out before I could accomplish them, dislocated a hip. So that kind of derailed my national championship ambitions in wrestling. But it definitely was something that was important to me. And, some of the nerdier ones on there definitely helped, like graduating college with a 4.0 and, earning a doctorate and things like that definitely helped set me up to where I am today.
You're extraordinary. I love that. Everybody listening, if you've got kids. I actually grew up with a very similar sort of dad, and we always had the goal setting, and we were often a bit smaller in terms of yearly goals and things, probably less about the 10-year. But it definitely helped me have the discipline and determination, at an early stage to strive for things and figure out how to get there. So I think that's absolutely fantastic. And for anybody out there that sells monkeys, I think we got a buyer, although it's not within the 10-year window. It'd still be pretty cool if you owned a monkey. I don't know, Colorado, can you own a monkey?
I don't think so. My mom, I think the reason that was on there, my mom liked the show Friends, and one of the guys on there had a monkey, and I literally was running out of things to say or put down, and I needed to get this project done. So.
Well, that's awesome. So did you say Coeur d'Alene was the Ironman you did?
Coeur d'Alene was the first one that I did in 2011. And I 100% planned on being a one and done. Ended up qualifying for Kona. And so I figured I should do that. So thought I'd be two and done at that point. But leaving the Big Island was really where I fell in love with the sport. I was happy with the way the race went there, and kind of at that point thought I had found my lifelong hobby.
And so leaving Kona, was it identifying that, hey, I've actually got some ability here? Was it kind of that feeling when you left Kona, or was it just, I love being around the people, I want to keep doing this?
To be completely honest with you, when I was sitting in the recovery area in Coeur d'Alene, Croy was at the table, and I was a complete noob. I knew nothing about the sport. I knew that he had won, but I didn't know the athlete that he was at that point. And we were just chit-chatting afterwards, and he was like, oh, well, how'd it go for you? And I said, oh, it was my first one. I did this. And he's like, well, what'd you run? I said, I went 3 flat. And he's like, and your first one? Oh, you've got some potential in this sport. That's awesome. And I'm sure he doesn't remember that at all, but it's something that's always stuck with me. And then, obviously him winning world championships afterwards, and, me remembering him saying that definitely kind of helped fuel the passion that I had for the sport.
Oh, that's awesome. So I just had Crowe on the show last week with Simon Whitfield, and we all sat down together because we've all known each other sort of for 30 years. And do you know Crowe now?
I've had very few conversations with him, really, bump into him at Kona or whatever, but don't know him very well.
All right, well then I have to set that
Boulder before I moved over.
We have to set that up as an introduction. Actually, you're both on Any Question now, so we'll have that. We'll set that up for you guys to have a conversation there. That's really cool, mate. I love that, and
I love the way he runs, or the way he wins. It was setting up, and that's my pathway to winning a race is executing it like he did. So it was an easy person to look up to.
Yeah. Well, he's also one of just the best men around. You can't go wrong the way he carries himself, and he's a great human being. And I love the fact that he fueled your desire there. And so going along this journey then, was there a point where you said, okay, I'm going to go all in here? I have some ability, I love what I'm doing. Or has that been a gradual process, or is it sort of a one-off moment?
It was definitely a one-off moment. I had set a goal in 2013, just to get good enough to earn a pro card. I'd had, some good amateur races in 2012. And so that was the goal for 2013, and ended up doing that the first race of the season. And so I was like, great, I earned the pro card. Perfect. And then the goal was to win the age group division in Kona in 2013. And I never planned on racing as a pro. It was just I wanted to be good enough to know that I could. And then went to Kona in 13 and headed multiple flats and kind of sat on the side of the road for way too long. And obviously that meant that I didn't have the day that I wanted there. And so I took my pro card so I could revenge race in Arizona. Had a fine day there. It was a huge PR for me, but it was, I think I finished 15th or something in the field. So nothing impressive, but it was like, okay, yeah, I kind of belong here. I'll race as an amateur. Came back and won Ironman Chattanooga in 2014. And then, I was still teaching full time, and came back into 2015 and won the first North American Championship. And this was the moment that changed things was, I won. And then when you win, you stay there until midnight, hand out the finisher medals. And then I was in the water at 6 a.m. the next morning, and then give the award speech afterwards. And then I had to drive 17 and a half hours back home to teach the next day, 8, 9. So I literally just went straight to the school, showered and changed there, and then taught 8, 9, 10, and 11 o'clock classes. And I'm like, I can't keep doing this. I need to look back and know rather than look back and wonder what if. And so that was kind of during that drive. That was when we had some long conversations between my wife and I, and I'd literally just been granted tenure. Essentially, I went through the review, but it was a tough decision, but my wife supported it, and yeah, that's been the direction we've been going since.
What a scary decision to make. To have such extreme options, people always, I'm not a huge fan of options. Sometimes I'm like, just tell me what to do.
Complicate things.
Yeah, it's like that's, you've got tenure as a professor and you're a professor of sports science, correct?
Yep.
And so when you say you were teaching, was it specific areas within sports science or as a whole?
I guess that was one of the things that made the decision a little bit easier is I had started the program of just the general exercise science program, and it started with 7 people my first year. In my 4th year, we had 70. And wow. In a small college, that was 10% of the student population. And I was still the only professor. So I was very much overloaded and feeling a little bit run down anyways. And so that made things a little bit easier. And unfortunately, that was what it was going to take for the program to grow, because they weren't going to hire anybody while I was still the idiot doing multiple people's jobs. And so I left and they hired 3 people to replace me.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, there's nothing better than knowing your value. It's like, wow. And so you basically have made that decision. It's having your wife with you to be able to share that and discuss it with on a 17-hour drive. Any kind of, do you look back at that? Any kind of ever regrets, or like, do you look at it as a potential, I can always go back to that? Or are you all in and I have to make Ironman work for me?
No, I mean, I could go back. I do not want to. I want to make triathlon my lifelong, what I do for the rest of my career. And, that's why I've worked hard on the coaching front to develop that the way that it is. It was not easy. It required a big mind shift on my end. That from the rest of 2015 and into 2016, I had the worst stretch of racing that I've ever had. And I really think that it was because before I was doing something that I loved and, it was my hobby. And then I was adding a lot of additional pressure on myself to perform. And, it's not my hobby anymore. It's my job. So my stress relief became my stressor. And I don't think that helped me race to the best of my ability. And I was not having much fun. I was not much fun to be around, I'm sure, in the house, because I was, feeling stressed that I had just put us in a tough position. And I ended up, finding that I needed a change. And, that was, included a coaching change. And that's when I found Dibo. And it was just it was the approach that I needed at the time. The coaches that I was working with before were great to me. They treated me very well, but just got to the point where I personally needed a change. And so I kind of started everything from the ground up. And yeah, since I've started with Coach Dibs, it's been a lot better mindset. It's been a lot better or easier to be in control most of the time of the thoughts and the emotions that obviously drive your success.
And so with that, have especially during the COVID time, the financials, have you been able to, is the coach, how much of it is you kind of needing to, the coaching business, or endorsements versus prize money, you're able to keep afloat here pretty well? Yeah,
we've been doing all right. I tend to have a decent race when things start to get a little bit tight, but the coaching business had been built up to where it was doing really good. And then COVID hit, and, I had won a number of races in Texas. And so I had a big part of our group was in Texas. And when gas went negative in June of 2020, that day or that week, we lost 50% of the coaching business, because we had such, ties to the Houston Woodlands areas and such ties to oil and gas in that area. It was such a scary time that, I was hit pretty hard. And then we moved from Iowa to Colorado, had to try to sell a house and buy a house, and things were pretty tight. And then, Daytona happened, and, had my biggest payday, to date. And, that brought a lot of publicity, which kind of helped me build the coaching platform back up again. And so it was just kind of a very well-timed event on a number of different levels.
It's amazing, isn't it? It's like the universe it's almost like we try so hard, and at times you think, is it all just mapped out already?
Yeah,
it's like, are you just putting me on this roller coaster just because it's part of the test? Can we just not do that anymore? I mean, it's up and down. And how's the coaching now? You've got a full, are there any positions left if people want to get coached by you?
Yeah, we're always adding more.
Yeah.
The way I'm trying to build the coaching group is I add 1 to 2 coaches per year, and I do it through a mentorship basis. So I have to mentor them for the year in most circumstances. I don't want to create people who are doing things exactly like I am doing. I don't want a systems approach. I want independent thinkers who have a niche. And when I have an athlete reach out to me, if they don't want to work with me personally, I like to figure out what they need and say, hey, I have a coach for you, and here's why. And so that's the way we've been doing it. Plus, that allows me to keep the teacher mentality a little bit, obviously through coaching directly, but also through helping develop better coaches that I think anyways that are a part of our program.
And that's MattHansonTry.com?
MattHansonRacing.com.
MattHansonRacing.com.
Yeah, Matt Hanson Try is my personal stuff.
Okay, perfect.
Either one, I'll get you there.
Yeah, either one. You'll find Matt Hanson on the other end. That's great, buddy. And look, being a professor of sports science, have you found that to be helpful in your professional athletic career?
Yeah, definitely. And it can be helpful. It can get in the way of things a little bit because you start overanalyzing yourself. And so, I've definitely, on the helpful side, I've definitely been able to use that, obviously with the coaching thing, but with a lot of the companies that I work with, like, Hyperice, or I was doing research at the university with Normatec before I was even an athlete.
Was that with Galeb? Was that Galeb and that crew?
So I was able to get kind of a foot in the door and then get a partnership with them before I probably earned it, just because of being able to talk about them from a different perspective than a lot of the competitors that I have. We're able to. And, First Endurance, I've been involved on a lot of developmental things like writing, doing some research on what needs to be in the, some of their products and things like that. And so I've been able to use it in a positive way on some of those types of things. And then, what I'm doing with some of the Ask the Prof type things on my new YouTube channel has definitely obviously helped having a little bit of the education background. But I was finding, like, in 2016, I was really spending too much time overanalyzing every training session.
That can happen, right? I mean, my business partner, Ed Baker, he just loves your YouTube channel. I think he's learned so much from you on that channel. So I know he'd want me to just shout out to you on that, because I think you deliver such great content. And I hadn't thought about it with working with the brands, but it makes perfect sense. The fact that you can work with nutrition brands or you can work with recovery brands because you understand the science. And then they also get a great athlete on top of it. For me, that's a no-brainer. That's fantastic. And I think you could probably do that with most of the brands you're working with, right? Yeah, it's definitely, it gives me something different to at least get a foot in the door to start a conversation, I hope. So yeah. Really cool. Now you've been, like you said, you joined Julie Dibens, for people that doesn't know, good friend of ours in Boulder, and Matt Botchel for cycling. Yep. Is he, they kind of work together, right? In terms of the way they coach? Yeah, it's a pretty unique situation. And, we've been together for, I believe, since the beginning of 2018, and with the three of us, I guess, and so it's been good. It's great having Matt's perspective on a lot of things. He does a lot of work with some of the pro cycling teams for aerodynamics and things like that. So just having that knowledge in my corner is definitely helpful. And then Dibbo just kind of controls the overall stress on the body, and then writes the swim and the run programming. And so you mentioned you drive up to Boulder because you're in Castle Rock, right? Is it? I'm in Castle Rock, yep. So it's about 45 minutes,
It's an hour on the way there and up to 2 hours on the way home, depending on when I can get out of town.
Whoa. And so how do you choose what workouts you want to do with a group versus what workouts you do on your own?
Yeah, I go up every Tuesday, Thursday. Tuesday is, Julie's infamous terrible Tuesday. So we run at 7 and then swim at 9 to 10:30, and then I have a strength session with Kevin Purvis at 11, and then we have a bike session typically at 1 or 1:30. Then I go to PT and then drive home. So it's definitely a full day. I try to use that time wisely, but I'm definitely smashed by the time I get in the car on the way home.
A 2-hour drive home? You listen to audiobooks? What do you do? Oh,
yeah. Typically audiobooks or it's actually been a good time to get on the phone and I'm not always the best at being a friend or being, so calling family or calling some friends.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, good on you.
Yeah. So that's been a good time, good way to use that time. And then, Thursdays, again, we have that a run in the morning, squad swim, and then I typically have a second run in the afternoon.
Just a quick mini break to remind you to go check out Any Question. That's Any Question, one word, on iOS or Android, or you can go to anyquestion.com/Matt Hanson Try. What's some of the biggest training days you've ever done? I'm just curious about that kind. Does Julie do massive days, or did you used to do bigger days when you're on your own? Have you ever gone and done something extreme?
I've not been one for massive training days. Like some of the other guys post these huge sessions. I typically do one big session per Ironman build. That's like a full Ironman stress score bike, and then about 17-mile run off. But that's really to test the nutrition plan. And so we try to do that in the environment that we're going to race in. We did that in St. George this year. Unfortunately, decided to be 40 degrees that day. So it didn't quite work out the way we wanted it to, but still got the work done. Yeah. Earlier in my career, I do some really big runs. I don't do those anymore, thankfully. But I think I left my runs in the training session a couple times.
Too many times on my end. I can't tell you how many races I left in training during my days. It's like,
we can always be a training world champion, but if it doesn't show up on race day, it's all for nothing, right?
You got to manage that ego, Greg. Manage that ego. Yes. That's once I met Laura, married Laura, my career, it did hockey stick curve a little bit upwards because it was not getting rid of my ego, but managing that ego and using it at the right time became important. That's why I was never a great training buddy. I tended to race everything too much, and a little bit of that was because my own insecurities and wanting the pats on the back too often, and I think that can get in the way of a great performance.
Yeah.
Have you had any sort of massive failures that you've or setbacks that you've learnt from in this last since you've been professional athlete? Yeah,
I mean, my I guess the toughest race that I had was 2016 at Ironman Texas. I had won it in 15 and really wanted to come back and repeat and kind of prove that it wasn't a one-off thing, because I definitely wasn't a favorite in 2015. I on paper shouldn't have been up there, but it put it together on when it mattered. But coming back in 2016, it was coming on the back end of the run and had moved up. I didn't have a good bike, and then had moved up into third on the run with 2 miles left, and I could see second. So I'm like, okay, you have one more push, and I didn't, and I dropped, and I passed out. And
wow,
that was had heat stroke. It was obviously a miserable Texas in May day at that point, and so that was a lesson learned. It took me quite a while to even just accept that it was a mistake to push. Like, I was still kind of in the wrestler mindset as, you go for broke or, you go home. And, at that point, if I would have just kind of protected third and been, got to the finish line, I would have, had a trip to Kona that year, I still would have been on the podium. And, instead I ended up having to try to fly to Cairns and perform there. And I crashed there. And it definitely set things back quite a while on a number of different fronts. And it was a hard lesson learned, or a number of hard lessons learned.
Yeah, but it's so awesome to have that. I have a similar experience, and I'll bring it back to me. I remember having I was doing the Escape from Alcatraz triathlon, and I remember thinking before the race, if I can be a minute behind Chris McCormack and Craig Walton off the bike, I can win this thing. And I'd just come off a win in a World Cup in Japan, so I felt like my running was going really well. And anyway, I got off the bike with a lead over Craig Walton by 40 seconds and about 2 minutes over Chris McCormack. And rather than saying, okay, you've got this, just manage the run, I decided, I'm going to destroy these guys. And so I sprinted. I absolutely sprinted all the way around to the turnaround on the beach there at Alcatraz, and made the turnaround and saw the guys on the beach. Macca even gave me a high five. It was like I was 3 to 4 minutes in front by now. Like in an Olympic distance race, that's night and day.
Yeah.
And then I ran to the sand ladder, got up the sand ladder, and look, the sand ladder is always tough. But when I got to the top, I suddenly felt like, whoa. And then I was running down a single track with some amateur athletes coming towards me. And suddenly I almost abused them, like yelled at them. And I was like, what? That's not me. What was that? And then it was like about 10 minutes later, I was on had come down all the stairs and was back with about 2 miles to go and on the flat. And I just passed out. And I just hadn't listened to myself at all. Anyway, I walked it in about an hour later. And that was when I first met Chris Lieto, actually. I don't know if you know Chris Lieto, but at the time, and he walked me in all the way. He wasn't racing, and they put me on 2 IVs and everything else. Now, I only tell that story because it was like, from that moment on, no matter where I was, in what race, I never took it for granted that I'd won until I crossed that line. Yep. And it was the best lesson I could have had for the next 15 years going forward after that race. And I think it's a bit the same with you with that Ironman. It's kind of like, know yourself, know what to push for, and know when, right? And it's in your tool belt now. It's an awesome lesson.
Yeah, for sure. And it's definitely something that when this current system that we have for PTO points came out, that like just raised a huge red flag to me. Because like as a athlete, we should get the lead. If we're in the running for the win, we should get the lead and then protect it. But now we're rewarded for going even faster. And so, we've seen it happen just a couple of times so far, but, a couple athletes where, they're chasing more points and they ended up blowing the lead or putting themselves in a position where they, couldn't finish. And so it's definitely, a different mentality when we can't even race to win sometimes. I think that'll change in the future, but it's definitely something that I was a little bit wary of. Like, I love what the PTO is doing. This isn't a criticism, but it was just a little bit of a different approach to racing than what we've kind of had to do before or been able to do before.
No, look, the PTO is doing a lot of great things, but talking about how they do the point systems, everybody's talking about that. Have they got that right? And I think that's still, I don't think it's 100% right either. So it's definitely worth a discussion of how perhaps could be done better. And if the PTO want to be great, they're going to keep listening to the pros that they got to try and do things better. So I think it's a worthy discussion.
Sure. I mean, and I'm Tio and I both are on the board there, and that's been a lot of fun to be a part of that, and hope that we are trying to keep on improving. And the system that we have now is much better than no system, and I really think that there's a committee that's just for points, and I think that they'll continue to make small adjustments that are just going to make things better and better.
Well, did I see? I think actually, let me see. I said on the top of the show you ranked 8th on the PTO standings, but even more so, I think you're the number 1 American now.
I am just barely, yeah.
Sam
think,
Long is just behind you.
I expect him to go and have a cracker of the day at Challenge Road. The table, he just hasn't had a head-turning Ironman, full Ironman performance yet. And I think the table is set for him to go and do that in Germany. So, I hope he has a great day there. But obviously, I'll enjoy being the number one American for a little bit anyway.
Yeah, no, I saw that. Congrats, buddy. And it's a few Europeans, and then we have Braden Curry and Lionel Sanders in third and fourth for the internationals. But the Norwegians, mate, we have to talk about the Norwegians. Who can stop them? You, Jan Frodeno? And I guess a second part to that question is kind of, when we talk about winning at Kona Ironman World Championships, have you identified sort of what you need in your tool belt that's missing?
Yeah, I mean, they're setting the standard. There's no doubt about that right now in multiple different distances of racing. And we've got to figure out, as individuals and, how to elevate our game. Because, I kind of alluded to this before, when people see that it's possible, then they know that it's possible. And it's just kind of, go back to work figuring it out. We spent so much time trying to figure out how to break 8, and now we need to be spending that amount of time to try to break 7:30, I think.
Mm-hmm. 7:30 or 7 if you can have a team around you.
Yeah. If you've got a good draft group, 7, yeah.
I know, it really is incredible. I mean, I do look at guys like yourself and Sam Long, Braden Currys of the world. There's a group of you that one of you is going to come flying out of that group. Jan Frodeno, he has... Honestly, I have the highest respect for that guy because he's had a target on his back for a better part of a decade in leading the world. And he's had to go a couple of years almost with very little racing and now dealing with an injury. And I truly hope he can bounce back and be the Jan Frodeno of, 2019. But if he hasn't, he's also had his turn for sure. He's done incredible. And so I kind of go, well, the Norwegians are coming flying out of this COVID era. And don't get me wrong, they were building for years before that. I don't mean to cheapen what the years that they've put in, but they've certainly been the ones that have come flying out. But I do think there's going to be one of the guys that I just mentioned there, including yourself, that potentially is going to be the one that changes the game as well and lifting the bar. I'm just curious if it's all mental, kind of what you've hinted at, now we just got to get our heads around it, or what is it, physical or emotional even? At what point do you become the one that sets the bar? Yeah,
I think there's a lot to it. Obviously the mental and that is all part of it, but I think it's, the strategy is going to come into it quite a bit. I mean, you saw that, looking at how St. George shook out and looking, Christian was off the pace a little bit, and he didn't kill himself to get to the group. He slowly and just worked his way up. Lionel rode up to the group, rode with the group, and then ended up letting himself get dropped because he thought they were working a little bit too hard for what he was going to be able to run well off of. And those two strategies were the 1 and number 2 of the day. And so I think we got to learn from that. The mindset has always been, to roll with the Uber bikers, and is that the way to the fastest performance of the day? This year, in St. George, at least it wasn't. So it'll be interesting to see how the dynamics change with that moving forward, especially. Hopefully, if we learn a little bit from that, I think that might change the way we approach it. And are you all in for Kona this year? I mean, how does the rest of the year look? And are you 100% sure Kona's going to happen, or are you just going all in, and worrying about that? If it happens, it happens. Yeah, no, I definitely have to believe that it's going to happen in order to prepare the way that I need to prepare it for it. I think they'll make it happen. I'll definitely do the PTO races and want to put a great foot forward on those. The Canada one is just 5 weeks away or so, and so I'll be a little bit lower on the fitness level for that one after coming out of a break. But I think there's still time to go and put together a good performance there. And then didn't have a great Collins Cup performance last year. A lot of that was due to the setback that I had. Had surgery 2 days later afterwards, but. Or a couple of days later anyways.
That's right. You were injured last year. That's right. I remember that now. We didn't talk about that. Yeah. That's why 2021 wasn't as, you hadn't won a race last year. You were doing I had some opportunities early in the year, just didn't execute. But and so I definitely want to put together a better performance there. I should be safe with my selection there now, unless everybody
all the Americans have a great day in Canada. But I should be at the Collins Cup, and then looking forward to the U.S. Open in Dallas, which is going to be miserably hot racing in Dallas in the afternoon in September. But it should be another test for the nutrition plan for Kona for sure.
Yeah, well, mate, that's a lot of racing. I'm so bummed I'm not going to be joining you guys. I was offered a position to do the commentary work again, but with the amount of travel I've got going on with the work I do already, and with 2 little kids, I had to pick one.
Yep.
And I picked family. But Samarin, Slovakia, and just being around you guys and the sport, I do miss it. I think I am commentating still Watkins Glen, the Clash endurance event, in the next few weeks. But anyway, mate, well, this has been fantastic. Can we conclude with some rapid fire questions? Would you be up for that?
Of course.
Just a bit of fun?
Sure.
All right,
Yep.
Here we go. Let's see your fast twitch fibers.
Non-existent at this point. But.
Best and worst subjects at school?
Oh, best was probably math. Worst was art.
Oh, yes, you and I are very alike. All right. What are you currently watching on Netflix?
I watch so little Netflix. I watch the news while I'm working out, and that's about it.
You watch the news? Oh, my goodness.
Yeah, if I have a really hard workout, I watch one that I don't agree with, and if it's an easy one,
Is that right? Oh my gosh, that's brilliant. Oh my goodness. Okay, well then let's add to that. Most recent book that you've read that you enjoyed.
I am listening to the complete collection of Sherlock Holmes right now. It's been about 75 hours long, and
wow.
That's what I'm listening to in the car.
That's cool. I love Sherlock. That's so cool. All right, first car you owned?
Oh, I drove a 79 Chevy beater truck.
Love it.
Yeah. Old farm truck. That's what I took to school all the time.
Did you buy that, or were you given that, or was it a secondhand purchase?
No, it was what we had on the farm, and that was when I got my license. If I wanted to drive, I drove that.
That's awesome. I love that. All right. 2 most used apps on your phone?
2 most used apps, the text and the email, probably. Training Peaks would be 3rd.
Nice. All right. At what time of day are you most productive?
3 to 5.
Really?
Yep. I finish workouts for the day. I try to be done by 3, and then that's 3 to 5 is kind of when I go through the coaching stuff and get everything. I try to be done with that by 5 when my wife's going to be nearing home anyways, and then try to be off the computer then.
Wow, you and I are completely the opposite there too. That's when I'm falling asleep. All right, first job.
I worked on the farm and worked for my uncle's truck shop, changing semi-tires and semi-oil, or oil on the semi-tires.
What kind of farm were you on?
My grandpa had a dairy farm, so I spent summers there for most of my childhood baling hay.
Good man.
And weeding beans.
That's where the work ethic comes from. All right, summer or winter?
Summer.
Who would you want to play a movie of your life?
People say that from the Band of Brothers that the guy that played Winters looks like me. I don't see it, but okay. We'll go with him.
Go with him. Perfect. All right. Really important one now, because this will determine whether we're going to be friends or not.
Uh-oh.
Which decade of music is best?
Oh, I'm a big Eagles, Styx fan, so yeah, 70s.
Nice. I like that. Yes, you and I can hand out. We can listen to vinyl and drink T.O.'s red wine.
All right.
I love it.
Yeah. You've still got to teach me how to do that yet. We've had a few old-fashioned nights, but no wine night yet.
Oh, yeah. No, I'll fly back up to Boulder just to join you guys. All right. Last one. Greatest movie of all time?
Shawshank Redemption.
Gosh, that's been pretty popular. There's been a few of those over the 100+ episodes of this show, and asking that question. I'm not going to. It is one of those all-time movies, isn't it? So well thought out.
Yep, it's a good one. The second would be Gladiator. That's my go-to the night before the race. Calms the nerves.
Mate, well, this is awesome. So what's next for you? You got Edmonton, Samarin, US Open. So you're doing all the PTOs and then Kona.
Kona, yeah. It's having that extra championship race this year definitely made it a year of big races. Happy to steal a win on a year full of championship races, I guess.
Yeah. Well, you do 70.3 Worlds after Kona, or you make that decision afterwards?
Yeah, I think I will, as long as I'm healthy. Having it be in St. George, there's really no reason not to just drive over. It's not too long of a drive. So, might not be the peak fitness if I'm pretty smashed, but if I'm healthy, I'll go and race and see what I got left.
Well, mate, it's also great to see you on Any Question. You've just joined.
Yeah.
Looking forward to seeing some of your answers on there, and people can check you out. They can ask you questions there. Any Question has so many wonderful athletes and all sorts of people on it that people can listen to their answers and ask questions. So it's really, really cool to have you on that team amongst some of the world's greatest high performers, mate. So welcome to the team there.
Yeah, I appreciate it. It's been fun to see how much it's grown over the last year, and happy to be a part of it.
Very cool. All right, Matt. Well, thanks for your time, mate, and just sharing your whole journey and all your knowledge. I really appreciate it. It's just been absolutely wonderful.
Thanks for having me on.
All right. And everybody listening, you can find all the show notes, timestamps, links, and coupon codes at bennettendurance.com/media.
Thanks a lot for listening. If you enjoyed the show, your support would truly be appreciated. You can visit the Patreon page, or you can subscribe with your podcast app of choice. Don't miss the next episode, so subscribe and be notified. For show notes, if you want to know more, please visit bennettendurance.com. I'm Phil Liggett, and on behalf of Greg Bennett, here's to the next time, and I hope you will join Greg again very soon.